on the floor.
And we're live!
Hi!
Hi, folks! Okay, so this month's total Bollix chat. We are down 2 members, but we are up 1 member. So we don't have other Hannah and Lizzie with us. They might join us later, but they might not. Live stuff. But let's, obviously, if you're here, you probably know me. It's my channel. Hi, I'm Abby. Hannah, if you want to introduce yourself and then we'll go around.
Yeah, so I am the Bookworm's Feast. I'm used to having the other Hannah on here, so I'm used to saying I'm also Hannah. I am Hannah. I'm a bit all over the place. I've not been posting anywhere lately, to be honest, either. So I've been pretty quiet, but I have a blog and a bookstagram that I mostly stick to. So you can find me there at the Bookworm's Feast. I can't figure out whether it is there. And yeah, hopefully I'll actually get my life together soon.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
So hi, I am Celine from now Stuff Selling Reads. It used to be Stuff Selling Does, but I have separated the 2 accounts. And yeah, you can follow me on there. I don't have a website. I have a YouTube channel. I do not post anything on there, but I still do have it. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'm nervous now.
Don't be.
Caitlin, also known as Mad Cheshire Rabbit, but my name was too long to put into the thing. So for Caitlin, following the same vibes as Hannah, my life is a mess at the moment. So if we mess something up, like,
would you like to tell people why your life is a mess?
Major life changes. I have just graduated, which I was
not
under the
one thing I meant, but sure.
But this is the thing, right? Is I've always been told that once you graduate, your life is less busy. I'm graduating and I'm also 6 months pregnant, so like my life is hectic.
Yeah,
definitely busy.
Congratulations on both.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, she normally posts relatively frequently, but right now she's growing a human, so she's ever so slightly occupied.
Yeah,
very exhausting.
So I recommend going and subscribing to everyone's channels and Instagrams and Twitters and threads and everything, because other than when we're all dying, we're great to watch.
Just side note, Twitter changed their logo and I hate it.
Mm-hmm. Have you? Right.
I just saw randomly like a black cross on my iPhone. I was like, what is that? Like, is my phone being like, what is happening?
Also, he's managed to change the logo for Twitter, like the actual physical logo on the building.
Yeah,
and it's now so bright that it's giving people epileptic fits that live in the building opposite.
I need a new app for Twitter. Like, I need something new. I don't
People
like Twitter.
have been using Threads instead.
Okay, I'll check that because I.
But I don't know if you can use it, Celine.
Why?
Because the privacy laws weren't up to scratch for the EU.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Well, they were just harvesting all your data.
Yeah, they were taking literally everything, I think.
Everyone outside of the EU has already had the ability to go on Threads. Some people have saved, people have left. And it just takes your Instagram profile.
Yeah.
And makes a Threads profile. Using the exact same stuff. You will, if you say yes to it, you will automatically follow everyone you're following and everything like that. But the data privacy is not good enough for EU law, so it's not allowed in Europe yet. I don't know if you can get around that with a VPN or if they've changed that, but at least when it was first released.
I'm so sad. I'm so sad.
So yeah, for context, Celine lives in France.
I do.
We live in Britain, the rest of us. We live in England, and she lives in Scotland. But yes, so for this month's live stream, just to dive straight in, because I'm aware that it's going to be...
Sorry, I don't know what just happened.
The lovely Hannah, who's having some sort of household breakdown, has a time limit. Are you okay?
Yeah. No,
good.
I'm guessing all the doors are open downstairs and one of them's ended up slamming because it makes a wind tunnel. But I did not know all the doors were open. I didn't know any of the doors were open.
Oh, God. Right. So this month we're chatting about nostalgic books. Now, that can be either rereading a book, which is obviously nostalgic in and of itself, Yes. Hannah and Lizzie are indeed engaged in the manner that we thought they were. They may be late. But yes, so the nostalgic book can either be a reread or it can be a book that makes you feel nostalgic for something, whether that is a place, a person, a time, if it's just the vibes of the book. That's what we were going with here. Mm-hmm. So because of aforementioned time limits, we are starting with Hannah. I keep wanting to justify which Hannah you are. This is really
I know, it's weird.
Other Hannah's not here.
I know. It's so weird.
Yes. So
yeah.
I was for a split second I thought I'd clicked the wrong banner, and I was like, have I just put the wrong Hannah banner up?
In case you couldn't figure out that it's Hannah. It's Hannah.
Yeah. It is
but there we go. So I am going to come back to other Hannah and say that she's fine, whilst this Hannah tells us about the book.
I'm going to attempt to tell you about my book, because again, my brain has not really been working or coherent. So yeah, I read Pride and Prejudice. I did listen to the audiobook rather than actually read it, but it's a book that I have read, I don't actually know how many times. According to Goodreads, 4, but I'm sure it's more than that. And I really love it. It's just part of my childhood at this point. Because whenever my mum was like doing chores around the house, she'd be like doing like the ironing or whatever. Like she'd leave it stack up over the week and do it all in one go. She'd have like the BBC miniseries of Pride and Prejudice on in the background. So it's like the backtrack to my childhood. And I just, it's just endeared it to me, I guess. Like I love the story anyway, but like there's like this whole other vibe to it for me because of all that, like growing up around it, like all the different iterations. It wasn't only the BBC. That is my favorite one. It was on the most frequent. And like Colin Firth will always be Mr. Darcy to me now. I was at Lyme recently actually where they like filmed it, and they have called it Darcy's Pond that they use now. And yeah, but no, it's got to be one of my favorite books. I don't really know what to say about it because I guess like I think everyone's heard of it at this point. Like
everyone's heard of it. Like I think anyone who speaks English has heard of it.
Yeah, like it's a romance, but it's not like an ooey gooey romance. Like it's very like it's like really like straightforward and all this. Most of the book they don't even like each other, but it's got all like the societal things from the Regency era as well, which is when it was written. So it's all like very prim and proper as well at the same time. But I just really enjoy it. I like watching how the characters like evolve over it. And I don't know. I don't know why I love it. I just love it. Again, I can't
the vibe.
Yeah.
I do have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have plenty. Well, I have some questions. How old were you when you first read the book?
It was just after school because I thought we were going to study it in school, and then we did Hobson's Choice instead. So it was after I left school. Because before then I hated reading. So I was like, oh, I'll like actually read the book as part of like, you know, learning and being forced to. But my final English teacher that I had in like my last year, she like changed my mind on English. Like she was incredible. I loved her. And it was around that time that I kind of started reading again. So yeah, it wasn't. It was shortly after. I don't think, was it in college? I'm trying to think if it was 2 or 3 years after school, which was shortly for me and my reading journey because it was very gappy.
You knew about the story beforehand because your mom used to watch the miniseries.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to know like whether it was like true to the book. Like I was also intrigued about A Christmas Carol at that time because like every year I've got to watch my Christmas Carol and all the other versions, but that's my favorite one. So it was like another one where I was like, I want to know how much of the book actually is there. And how much is just made up sort of thing.
How much is like how much of what you remember as like your childhood is actually in the book. Quite a lot actually. But then again, the BBC miniseries is huge. Like until I sat down to watch it a couple of years ago on my own, I didn't realize it was as long as it is. Like I think the episodes are like an hour and a half each or something like that. Really? And I was like, oh, this is really long. I expect this to be like an hour, like a film, like not realizing. Because I'd always just seen like chunks of it
Like I'd never actually watched it in one go.
Yeah,
That's a long time.
it is very
I'm
long.
sure I could be lying. It's been a while since I've watched it, but it was definitely a commitment when I did go to it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this isn't a one and done. This is.
Do you have a favorite adaptation of the book, like a movie, but a favorite like movie, TV series? Like, do you have a favorite adaptation?
It is going to be the BBC miniseries for me, just because, as I say, I've got so much nostalgia around it. But the Keira Knightley one's very close. Like,
I mean,
it was
this
good.
is a great movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love this one. I love Keira
It
Knightley.
is. But they do change more of it for that. So I think that's also another reason why I like the miniseries, because it is closer to the book.
Yeah.
I guess because it's had so much that it can spend more time on it.
Yeah, probably.
More details. Yeah.
Mm.
I need to watch it. I still need to watch it.
Like
I've
I
never
feel
watched
like
an adaptation ever.
yeah, I feel like Colin Firth's more
One?
awkward, so it suits Darcy more as
Okay,
well.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm.
And do you have a favorite character? If so, which one?
It's
Easy.
probably Darcy.
Really? And is it the same favorite character both in the book and in the TV series then?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like grumpy older men, I seem to just be like I gravitate towards. I'm like, yeah, I like your vibe.
I get that.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh, what I was gonna say is, have you ever listened to it by audiobook? Because that is how
Yes.
Eleanor read it this month.
Mhm.
Do you recommend the audiobook as well?
I do. That's what I listened to. I think I've listened to a couple of versions now, but it's been a while. I listened to the Audible Studios one. I've got it on my phone actually because I haven't undownloaded it yet. I listened to that one. Where's the camera? If it wants to focus a bit, I don't know.
With
But
all
it's the Audible
London-
Studios one, and it's got like a picture of a house on it.
Good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like listening to it this time, there was like bits changed from the book or things I've forgotten at least. I'm not sure which one it is, but I feel like there's a bit more of an epilogue to the book. Maybe I should just quickly flick through the book. I only finished this yesterday, so I didn't get around to flicking through just to see whether the ending is as long. Because there was like loads of wrap up on that audiobook of like, oh, and this person saw this and they saw these people like afterwards, like how they're all like intermingling the characters, which I really enjoyed. Like it was great, but I don't remember reading that. At least
I saw
so
an analysis of her work recently, and it was someone saying how everyone, obviously you also touched on this, how everyone just says, oh, it's just a romance book, and it's not, because these girls aren't, super rich. Like, it matters who they marry. If they marry the wrong man, they will lose all their social standing, and also they can't make money for themselves unless you are working class. You can't work as a woman, so you need to marry a rich man because you need him to pay for you to exist and to at least live up to the base minimum of societal expectations. And so it's trying to survive as well as trying to find someone that you will actually kind of enjoy life with, at least a little bit. It's like it's I think that's why I actually, because obviously I've never really delved too much into the romance side of things ever, and I think that's why I've never really had an issue with classics like this, because it does have that extra dynamic of, like, it's not just, oh, I love him, it's I love him and practically this is like good for my station. Like, there's more to it.
Pride and Prejudice, I'd say a little bit less so with how it's written. It's like Lizzie, for the most part, it feels like she just doesn't care and would possibly be quite happily a spinster.
Yeah, I am saying that as I'm currently reading Sense and Sensibility, so I'm a little skewed.
I don't know what it is about that one. My brain cannot retain that one. It doesn't matter how many times I watch it, how many times I read it. I'm like, I can't remember. Isn't there Colonel Brandon?
Yes.
And then Eleanor. And that is all I remember about that book.
Say too much because spoilers, but there's cheating, which
Okay,
I was very surprised by in a Jane Austen. I was like, hello, in her books, really? But I'm having a time, a good time.
Because I've read it a few times. I've watched. There was another common one my mum had on, but again, I don't know what it is about it. And that one's Alan Rickman as well. Like, I love Alan Rickman. Like, I should love this film, and I just can't retain it. I don't know why.
Yes, Charlotte.
Yeah,
marrying someone because she has to.
Yeah. There are elements, but it's like compared to some others that. Well, I say some others actually. I'm not sure what I'd say would like be a stronger one, but like
I don't think it's ever
just
like
feel
the
minimized
strongest
because
point. I just think because it didn't have to be. The books were aimed at women at that kind of level of society because that's who had the time to read for leisure, or had the education to learn to read at that time, to read a novel. You know, people from the working class could and did, but it was aimed at the class that could afford the time for them. And so you didn't really need to explain any of it. You could just focus on the love story because they knew like that was their, like they'd either already gone through it or were gearing up to go through it.
Yeah.
Like that was their reality. So I guess you didn't need to kind of spell it out in the way that you would if you were writing a time period now and trying to make the same points that she would have made at the time.
Yeah. But like Lizzie doesn't seem to have much because like you mostly read through. Well, you only read through Lizzie's perspective. She doesn't seem to like because the again words. I'm struggling to like formulate sentences. So like she has like the previous marriage proposal in the book, and it's just like a flat out no. It's not like, oh, you're not good for my station, or maybe I should because like who else is there and all this. It's you've got like some of the scandal around like soldiers and stuff and whether things are being proper and stuff like that. But
maybe
there's not a lot of like the social standing besides when Lady Catherine like barges in being like, what are you doing?
Maybe that's why it was so popular compared to all her other books. Like all her other books were popular.
Yeah.
They were all popular, but maybe that's why Pride and Prejudice is the one that has always stuck out, maybe because it was so different and it didn't have like obviously as Eleanor mentioned, Charlotte is that element. It's still set in reality for that time, but it like maybe she was kind of an escapist like view for them to pretend that they were allowed to do that they were allowed to marry, not allowed, but you know what, that they could marry just because they wanted to and not because they needed to, rather than both.
And then I guess another thing that I'll just note is that I feel like it's a really accessible classic. Like how it's written, sometimes I'm like, it doesn't even like there's not like a lot of old jargon and stuff like this. Like it just feels quite current still in a way. Like obviously society's changed, but like the actual reading experience, it's like really easy to follow, which I know is something that a lot of people who don't read many classics kind of feel intimidated by when I speak to them. So yeah, that's the same for like all of Jane Austen's, I'd say. But like
writing is so obviously like this terminology that's used. I mean, literally, if they talk about anything to do with money, anyone who was born after the early 70s is lost.
Yeah,
like, what do you mean you spent £1.50?
Yeah. Yeah, there is like that aspect, but I suppose that's the same with like any kind of fantasy world. So it doesn't really kind of I just ignore it.
I just think that you do in fantasy where you read a word and you don't know what it means or how you say it, and your brain just goes like, oh, you played for this thing. Yes, it cost that much. Wonderful.
Yeah, but like in like King Killer is like another series I like, and it's like talents and stuff. I'm like, I don't really know what a talent is, but you know, it's a lot of money apparently. It's 14 for him to get into the university.
See, that's the difference, is that you have to they have to explain that in a fantasy novel.
Yeah, I suppose.
Whereas in this, like in Jane Austen's book, she's like, £100 a year was enough to suffice as a lady, and we're like, you what?
Yeah,
I wish. Give me £100 a year. Like, oh yes, please.
You can't even live like a week with that. Maybe a weekend.
Like maybe if you are very, 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 very frugal, you could get by with like your necessities, like your food and your transport to work and paying to wash.
Could you?
Probably not anymore.
But not including your rent.
No.
If you got the bus and you bought like like the worst food from like, like
Well, just
Tesco own
pasta.
brand.
Just you would
Yeah.
only eat pasta.
Yeah, like Tesco own brand pasta with I don't know why I'm insulting Tesco's here, with Sainsbury's own brand tomato sauce, and that's it. And then you eat Morrison's own branded cornflakes, and that's it. And you travelled by bus to work if you needed to go to work, and you did your laundry all on the shortest possible cycle. Then you could live on 100 quid a week, but where you're living, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's not possible.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Ah, what a world we live in.
Any other questions?
Mm,
Don't think so.
It does surprise me that people like Pride and Prejudice more than Sense and Sensibility. Granted, I like them both, but like I do think that Sense and Sensibility to me is just a little bit more gritty. It's a little bit more, it's got that thing like a little bit more
Cheating.
social taboo.
Yeah.
The cheating, yes, the cheating.
How have I never heard about this?
Pride and Prejudice is the only book that I've read so far by Jane Austen, so I do need to continue. With
Yeah,
my-
I mean, obviously I won't give any spoilers partly because I can't, because I'm only halfway through the book. But like that's something that's in it. And I'm not going to say anything other than cheating, but like I did not expect that in an Austen book. And I've read Persuasion, Lady Susan, Pride and Prejudice. Have I read any more? Why am I asking Caitlin? I can't remember. But I've read at least those.
I've read all but Emma.
Yeah. Emma, maybe no.
No, I've not read Emma yet. That's still on the list. I would check.
Northanger Abbey.
No, I've not read Northanger Abbey.
Really?
I love Northanger Abbey.
Wait,
Read
have
it.
I read Northanger Abbey?
That's
It's
like
the
so
top
up your
novel one.
street. I feel like it's a
I
little
have read Northanger Abbey. That's
yeah,
why.
I thought you did.
If it's a classic, I'm just like, Caitlin, have I read this? Have I? Because I don't know. But yes, so does anyone have any more questions for Hannah?
I appreciate it has been a bit chaotic. I've just kind of bounced around, I feel.
That's the point of curiosity. Least favorite character.
I agree.
Oh. Celine's coming in with the questions. Go on.
I mean, just least like curiosity. Least favorite character. If you do have one, you might not have one. I don't know.
Well, I do. Like, I hate Mr. Collins. I'm sure there was someone else that when I was reading it, I was like,
I mean,
who-
that's classic.
why?
I like this guy.
Oh, he's awful.
I want to squish him.
There was someone else who was like really like snobby, and I can't remember who it was. Well, a few of them are, but like there was someone who was like really grating on me this read through, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Collins, but like he's probably going to be most people's answer because like he's not likable at
He's
all.
not very likable. Yeah, that's fair.
As Celine said, squish. So yes, no more questions. So I will remove the Hannah banner. Thank you very much. And Caitlin or Celine?
Whoever you prefer, it's fine.
Surprise us.
I am going to go with Caitlin just to give her anxiety, but also this gets it over and done with. Last year, fine.
Perfect. Well, I am indecisive, clearly. So I can have three. They're short ones, though.
Ooh,
They're
I'm
three.
really short. And Abby,
I knew I
this
could
is-
rely on you.
Abby, just in case, this is what we call a short book. Just in case.
Hello?
So this is the real definition of a short book, okay? Not the Count of Monte Cristo.
I was going to say, Caitlin, do you know about this?
I hope it's not you saying the kind of Monte
You're very-
Cristo is
okay,
a
so
short book,
I did not say it was short. I did not say it was short.
because that's factual.
You said it was quick. It was
Yes,
not.
I said it was a quick read.
The very first prompt of the year, so January, was a quick read. Abby came up with the Count of fucking Monte Cristo.
What flex?
My defense, it's very quick for a classic.
I get what you were saying about it, but it's still.
It also
Huge.
wasn't like it's not like it was my main
It's
book.
over
Like,
a
it was like,
thousand
oh, she
pages
came
long.
with the Count of Monte Cristo. No, I came with another book and then was like, oh, also, the Count of Monte Cristo was surprisingly quick to read through for a classic, and for the fact that it's the size of a fucking
No.
brick.
No.
It's
No.
a bit showy offy.
No.
Like, oh, by the way.
Abby, no.
It's
And
just
you
so
will leave that
readable.
down.
maybe
But
one day.
they won't let me. They won't let me live down. So
No, never, ever.
No, never.
Ever.
Granted, to be fair, that's a
Bitch,
total flex.
this is my channel. Shut the fuck up and talk about your stupid short books.
This is what your channel's about. This is why I watch your content.
Yes. Anyway, woman, shut up.
Yes. Well, so I've got 3. They're a bit weird. They're going to need a little bit of explanation as to why they fit into the prompt. First off, I think people who grew up in Britain will understand this. It's Up the Junction by Neil Dunn, and I'm pretty sure it is set in London during the 1960s.
Okay.
Hannah, have you read Up the Junction? Caitlin, I feel like this might be Scottish. Carry on.
It's not. It's London.
No, but being in the curriculum.
Oh, well, yeah, I read it at university, so maybe. But that's weird though, because it is set in London.
I've never heard of it.
It's weird because even though it's set in the 60s, I feel like if you grew up in Britain in the early 2000s, like pre-2010, like you'll understand it. It's got that kind of like everyone just knows each other. And maybe this is actually a little bit Scottish. I don't know how this is in England, but you grow up in Scotland, like, and you live in small towns, like small villages. Everyone knows each other. Like there's like everyone's friends. All the kids know the adults. All the adults know the kids and who your mum and dad is. Like it was a very friendly local community kind of thing. And so this is a short story collection basically set up on that, but then it also has the darker elements of, you know, working class life in small towns, that kind of thing. I read it for university. It's probably like the only thing I actually enjoyed in university. But it was great, and I would definitely recommend it. Well, actually saying that.
Wait, before you move on, why does it give you like nostalgic vibes? Is it because it like reminded you of your childhood?
Yeah, it's the culture. It's like the cultural thing. It's a very culturally like, yeah, small local town in Britain culture. It's a very specific thing. I feel like I don't feel like anyone else would get it.
I mean, I feel like small town culture is similar globally.
Maybe, but maybe
to an extent, like you can go anywhere on the globe, and if you live in a small village where everyone knows everyone, then there's a certain level of culture where it's just that's just how humans are, and then obviously it then goes out for the country and the country's culture.
I do think the difference lies in how rude and like very comfortable and like familiar British kids are with adults. Like you grow up in a small place, like kids don't have any manners. Like they'll just say whatever they want. They'll call you whatever they fancy in that very moment. And the kids have banter, essentially a weird kind of banter, not like a friendly banter, but it's weird. I don't know how to explain it. My brain's on like half capacity.
You've got baby brain. We'll let you off.
Thank you. But similar, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark, very similar vibes, but a little bit more specific to schools. And the weird thing about this is that it's a very specific school that they're talking about, but once again, like that relationship, I guess, between young, you know, specifically girls in school and teachers. Like the what do you call them when you look up to somebody and like they're like your
role model?
Thank you. Thank you. Like that kind of vibes. So like when you have a like role model figure and then growing up to realize that they're not necessarily a great person to be looking up to. That kind of these are kind of depressing. Should we go back to Pride and Prejudice? Like
Go back to your childhood, woman.
But this is just how people grow up in this part of the world.
I was going to ask, did you have a traumatizing childhood? Is that what it was?
I'm starting to wonder myself. Because before I started talking about these, I'm like, oh, everything was fine. But now I'm starting to wonder.
I mean, you grew up in Scotland, so I think Scotland is, you know how Celine and I always complain that the North is underfunded? And like how it's like left out of all the conversations and it doesn't have any money, and like the north of England is always very poor.
Scotland's the excess of that.
Yeah, no, Scotland's like Northerners because we are the same. Yes. Hannah's nodding.
Yeah.
I'm in a town that the rest of the county likes to ignore, I feel. So I feel this.
Fair.
I get those vibes because we live in between Glasgow and Edinburgh. the only two places in Scotland I think people care about. So anywhere else, you're just kind of, what is that? What's this place?
Yeah.
What's this little blot on the map?
Yeah.
But the last one is The Man Who Planted Trees. Happier. It's a
That is
happy-
happier. I have that one.
It's fantastic. This gives me nostalgic vibes for a time that I was not able to experience, when people actually cared about looking after the planet and like growing things and breathing life into their.
Which was gifted to me by Caitlin.
Yeah, because it's fantastic. I wish
It is.
everyone would read this. It's made me feel so hopeful and happy.
Abby, can you send me a picture of this cover, please?
Yeah, and I'll send you a picture of the barcode as well for the ISBN.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, like I totally immediately you've mentioned this one, and I see why you see it as nostalgic, because it pulls on, if you read any of the English classics, or at least the ones that were common for English people to read, so like Heidi and the Secret Garden, it has a similar vibe to them, whilst also being very much about, you know, caring for the earth and caring for the planet, which is something that is more nurtured in children, and then as people grow up, they're like, oh, who cares? I need to work and I need to pay my bills. Life is hard. And so it is kind of like nostalgic for that simpler time, even though everything's not simple. So 100% agree with you on this. Like, it's a fantastic little book. I love it. I love it.
I will be buying this after the show.
I'm so glad.
You both made Caitlin's day, just so you know.
Oh my god, it's so good. Honestly, I feel like if more people read it, the world would be a happier place. We need to give this to the governments. It's like they make this a set text for politicians. We need to make the governments happy.
In terms of like the content, if anyone's worried about that, it's literally a man planting trees. He goes to I don't know why I'm taking over this. This is your fucking book.
It's your life. This is, please.
But there's an area which did have forest, and it's been deforested, turned into farmland, and then because of, I'm not going to go into it because I will, because that's what I did at uni, but because of shit, it's now just a wasteland. And so this one bloke decides to dedicate the rest of his life to planting trees there. And so, you know, it starts out just a few trees a day, like 3, 4, and eventually he's there for the rest of his life until, you know, he dies an old man. And every single day he's caring for the trees that are already there, and he's planting more trees. And it goes from a wasteland to a forest. And it's kind of discussing that whole thing. It also has, you know, like vibes of like, you know, you reap what you sow. So it's not just environmental, but also it very much is environmental. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
There is a video that goes along with it that's on YouTube, and it's called How Wolves Changed Rivers, or How Wolves Can Change Rivers. And it's like this absolutely amazing, like it's a simple idea when I may be the only one who found this like something that I didn't think about. So like, but it was amazing that it shows you how, like, you know, anybody, anything, specifically people, have control over changing an environment, like an actual physical, natural landscape. So there's a forest, and I'm pretty sure it was in France, like this book's based in France, that was dehydrated because the river was going away from it. So then they put wolves into the forest to control the deer population so that knew what plants could grow. And then the river changed back into the forest and rehydrated the forest. And it's amazing. It's very, very short, and it's very inspiring, and I think it's amazing.
It's very good. Highly recommend this book. Like, deeply, deeply highly recommend.
Definitely adding it to my wish list on Amazon for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so intrigued. And it's so short as well.
Yes, it's a very quick read. Like, it's not even like the font inside it's tiny or anything. Like,
I think it's 50. No, it's like 40 pages.
Really? That's
yeah.
it?
my edition is 42 pages, and if I get a page that's just writing, it's big text as well.
Yeah.
So like super quick read. So like, especially, you know, if you can't afford to buy it, like if you can get it from the library, anything like that, then
I'll have to buy it, but yeah.
No, I know, but just anyone else.
My job here is done. I'll be gone.
We convinced at least 2 more people to buy the book, so you're good.
Exactly. So she's happy now. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Caitlin?
Well, I haven't read the book, so it's a bit more complicated this time around.
Yes, you've managed to mention 2 books that no one's ever heard of, and 1 book that the only 2 people that have heard of it are me and you.
It was intentional. I don't want to talk for this long.
That's also a good job, because usually we tend to go for books that everyone knows. So, like, good job.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My
Like,
apologies.
genuinely pause, because we do struggle with us picking up a book and everyone's like, oh yeah, I've read that.
Exactly.
It's fun for
We all
discussion,
know
but it's
the
not
book.
so fun for like diversifying our TBR.
I will say that's one good thing that my university was really good for, was picking out these really insanely obscure books where it was actually hard to find some of them because they were that like unknown and people just stopped printing them.
Oh god, no, that's too difficult. I don't be hunting down a book on top of trying to do my dissertation. Like, no.
Nightmare.
Oh god, no. Ew. Crazy scientist. Okay, so if that is Caitlin's done, then it's Celine's go. There we go. That's what I was trying to say.
I'm gonna quickly bid adieu though, because I do need to run. Sorry.
Of course, no worries.
I was
But
going to
really
say, like, I'm choosing a book that you're currently reading, so I'm like, I need to find a way not to spoil anything anyway. So
well, that's fine. I'm disappearing.
Yeah,
so
go
bye.
on.
Because yeah, I know what you've picked. You showed me before, and I can't wait to finish it. I just need to actually read the book.
I can't wait for your thoughts, because I read a lot of this book, so I can't wait for your thoughts.
Okay, well, I'll let you know. I took it to Bath and everything, so it's like I'll take pictures with it around Bath. I didn't even get around to doing that, let alone reading it. I was like, it's raining.
It's okay.
Anyway, bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us. And now we were 3. Sadness. So, Celine.
So I picked
That's so pretty.
What?
It's gorgeous.
That's so
Oh,
pretty.
yeah, it is the Waterstones exclusive edition.
And you actually read it?
Yeah.
You read a book that was an exclusive edition?
How dare you? This is true, but how freaking dare you?
Everyone go and check out Celine's Instagram story, which is currently a massive unhaul.
I tend to buy just too many books.
You know what she's unhauling, Caitlin? If you, I would have already let you know sooner if you needed to. She's unhauling the Illumicrate special edition of Ember in the Ashes.
It's Fairy Loot, but yes, it's the Fairy Loot.
Oh, the Fairy Loot. Sorry, my apologies.
Wait, no, why?
You forgot.
Why would you do that? It's so beautiful.
She doesn't like YA.
Sorry,
Okay,
I haven't read them. I have not read them. That's the thing. I haven't even read them, but I need a fridge.
Yeah, this is the thing. So this is the Ember in the Ashes series is one of Caitlin's favorites. Like, that's one of the ones that she will go to bat for. That's why I brought it up, because it's hilarious. But also, it's correct for Celine to get rid of it. She's not into YA books as it is, and they were expensive, and she needs a fridge.
I need a new fridge. I'm so sorry, but I need a new fridge.
We can
As Caitlin's heart is breaking it. Remember, she's buying this. It's okay. She's
I'm buying this, okay? Don't hate me. I'm buying this book to recommend it, okay?
Anyway, back to the book.
Back to the book. So I picked up this one, which is also the book of the month for my new book club. So I wasn't sure what I was going to pick, actually, because it's hard to find in advance something nostalgic. You don't quite know. Well, you know what the book is about, but you don't really know what it's about either. Mm. So I was glad that I was already a bit over halfway through the book, and I was like, this gives me vibes of so many other things that I've read in the past. And like, so I was coincidence, but very good coincidence. I don't want to spoil too much because there's so many twists and turns in this book. Abby, you would love it, by the way. Just saying. I know, but you would love it. So it's a historical fiction and a little bit of magical realism. So we're following our main character, Red. At the beginning of the book, it's set in 1730, I want to say, if I remember correctly. And she is with her father. She's 7 at the time, and she's a fortune teller, so her dad as well. And they just go from town to town living like that. She does the fortune telling of different kinds of people, and she uses a very specific set of cards called the Square of Sevens. And she's probably one of the only few people in the world knowing about that and how to do that. Not a lot of people at the time know anymore how to play that and just, telling fortune like that. And it's not really a spoiler because it happens right at the beginning of the book, but the dad dies. And then from there, she has to kind of like survive because she's still just 7. And so I don't want to say too much, but basically we're following her trying to escape a poor life and trying to find her family because she doesn't know who her mom is. And so she's trying, just to find, family members and who they are and trying to survive, basically. And it is so good.
It sounds amazing.
It sounds really good because it's very more like it's definitely a historical fiction book. But then you have the whole thing around the fortune telling and the cards, like the Square of Sevens, which gives you a magical realism kind of vibe. You don't know if it's true. You don't know because it's telling, like she tells people's life through cards. How real can it be? Like if someone today were to do that to me, I wouldn't believe the person, I would be, no. But she does it really well. And so it's on the brink of like, do you want to believe her? Is it real? Is it not real? Is it something more? And throughout the whole book, we have some hints kind of telling us that the cards have their own minds and stuff. And if you don't play fair the cards, something bad will happen to you, which is like kind of like, fantasy-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
So I really liked this in between. Like you have this fantasy vibe, magical vibe, but you're not quite sure. And that's the kind of books that I've always loved, even as a kid. Like set in a world, but like you're not sure there's more to it.
Yeah.
For some reason, it also reminded me a lot of All Souls trilogy, A Discovery of Witches.
I've not read it. Have you read it?
Of that, which is a Dark Academia trilogy,
Yes.
I guess.
One of my friends from uni read it and loved it and tried to make me read it, and I
loved it. You didn't like it?
I never bought it.
Oh, I loved it. It's so good. So good. Really so good. I loved it. So it reminded me
big books.
Oh, well, you can read big books really fast, so it's fine. You don't have a problem reading big books.
That is true. It's a quick read, Abby.
I'm having a psychological breakdown this month. I don't need any more big books.
It's half the size of The Count of Monte Cristo. It's really a quick read, and the same for the other books.
And it's not a classic, so it'll be like less intellectually.
Don't you start, Eleanor.
Very
I love the Discovery of Witches. Stop it, woman. Also, hi.
So it reminded me a lot of that, and also because there's a book around the Square of Sevens where everything is kind of like written down, and at some point everyone is looking for that book and like for the papers about all of that, and again reminded me of The Discovery of Witches for that. And also at some point we are in a not really a castle manner maybe, and some people are starting to die, and like gave me Agatha Christie kind of vibe, like
why did you not mention the death earlier?
I don't want to spoil.
No, but people are starting to die. You've just said the words, people are starting to die. You're on my channel. You know what makes me want to read a book.
But like, again, there's a lot of twists. I didn't see any of them coming, like any of them. I'm like, how dare you? It was really good, like really good and really gripping. I can understand that it's not for everybody because the beginning is long. It's heavy on the details also. And for the Discovery of Witches, I need to watch the TV show still. But I will. But yeah, no, it was really good. The writing reminded me a bit of The Starless Sea for some reason. I don't know why. Like kind of like lyrical a little bit.
Ooh. I've not read any Erin Morgenstern, but I've heard a lot about her writing. I know.
The Starless Sea is one of my favorite books ever.
Look, my TBR is as bad as yours. And that's just the ones I own.
I mean, same. I keep on buying them. That's the problem.
I bought a book this weekend.
I did not. I don't think I did. I think I've been good this weekend.
Other than my book box, I haven't bought a book in like a month.
Good job. Well done.
Good job. Like, really good job.
it was a signed edition of one of my childhood favorites, which ironically would have worked great for this, but it's downstairs.
You could have brought it. You could have got it.
I was a little stressed before starting this because my other half delightfully decided to make dinner really late. He didn't decide. He forgot that he needed to defrost the mince.
Oh no!
So I was a headless chicken before we started the live. But yes, so I don't need to buy any more books, and yet Celine is making me want to buy more books.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really sorry, so.
No, we know. That's the problem. So, historical. So, what sort of time period is it set in, like, roughly?
Oh, it starts in 1730, and up until, so she's 7 at the time, and then 1740 and 1750, something like that. So and it takes place in England, obviously. Like there's London and other. I suck at remembering stuff. But Hannah, who was there, went to I don't know, like not this weekend, but last weekend, I think. And she took pictures of the streets that were mentioned in the book. So it was so cute. I was like, oh, you're there, like you're actually seeing everything. So yeah.
Oh, so it's set in Bath.
I guess so. Yeah.
So it links in with Pride and Prejudice because everything Jane Austen writes has some part of it set in Bath. Right.
Yeah.
See.
There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that. There's like there's a mystery behind. There's different mysteries behind all the mystery that is already going on.
Interesting. And then just to quickly recap, there's just 3 comments here. So Starless Sea. No idea what happened, but I loved it. I've heard of that a lot about this book.
Yeah, that is such a vibe. Yeah. Most people are like, I have no idea what I've just read, but it was great. And that's such a mood with this book.
Cool. Sounds good.
Stories within stories, and so it can be really hard to follow. But it's so good.
I mean, as long as it's good.
It's beautifully written. I want to read it now.
I've heard that a lot about it, and now you're going to reread it. Yes, we love. Also, yeah, what book was it? Especially if you're going somewhere, buying a book when you are somewhere, it's like the best souvenir.
Absolutely. It's a memory. It's a core memory of a place. So yeah, I'm all for that. Well, I'm all for buying books anyway, so.
Yeah, we know that. Okay, so any questions for Celine, Caitlin? It's fine, I don't have any more, so don't feel bad if you don't. But just any questions for Celine?
I do think it's cool that it's set in the 1700s because I don't feel like I at least know many historical fictions that are set in that point. Like before, yes, after, yes, but 1700s, that to me is an interesting time in history.
Yeah, I feel like, the 18th century is missed a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think I've read a lot in that specific period of time either.
Who was even the monarch then?
Oh, please don't ask me that.
I'm not asking you.
Yeah, it's not even my
French. You've got 7 million of them. That's not helpful. That's before the 70s. What? Oh God, we're back. Why did I do this to myself?
Google has the answer.
No, I know Google has the answer, but we have too many kings.
Queen Victoria's dad, right?
Probably.
It's the Georges.
Really?
1702 is Anne, Queen Anne.
Okay.
But George I until George III, because George III died or gave up his reign, I don't know which, in 1820. So from 1714 to 1820 is the Georges.
Okay.
So it's the Georges. So there we go. It's with Bridgerton.
It's referenced so often, yet I never know where to put it in history. the Georgian era.
Eleanor coming in clutch here. I didn't need to go Google it. Eleanor had the answer. Could have just done this. Thank you. And the cloisters.
Oh, I've heard about that. There's like isn't it a skull on the cover?
You said it's for October, I assume so.
I think it's a skull and there's like vines or plants on the cover, if I remember correctly.
I'm Googling it. Not that that's helpful. Oh,
Yeah,
why
right.
did I do that?
I think the cover is pretty, for what I remember.
No, I Googled the cloisters and then searched images, and it just showed me images of cloisters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a skull made out of flowers, like
Vines.
vines and flowers, vines with flowers on.
I have a good
Although the alternative cover, which I think is the American cover, is boring.
Yeah, they don't do a good job most of the time.
The
Plant
gold
skull.
edition
Plant skull.
kind of
We love
sucks as
plant
well.
skull.
Okay.
Okay, 2 seconds. I will reply to this urgent message, my deep apologies, and then I think it's my go.
And then it will be your turn, probably.
Okay, yes. So before I start, I think that is now unfortunately confirmed that Celine. What am I doing today? I just keep saying Celine's name. You're just in my head, lass. You're just in my head.
I mean, please, go ahead. I don't mind.
Lizzie and Hannah will not be able to make it today, unfortunately. Ironically, partly because of the fact that because we don't have them, the live is going to be shorter. Like, usually these lives are like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's partly because we have so many people talking about the books. Like, we have, oh god, I have to do maths now, 6 people each month. And that's part of the reason why, obviously, 2 of them are not here today. So yes, it means that they will probably not be able to join us because I don't think they'll be done in the next 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So it will just be us this time round, and I do apologize for that. But we have me, and then I will, Eleanor, I've seen your comment. I will come back to that as something to talk about once I've spoken about my 3. So I wasn't sure what the hell to do for this prompt.
Yeah.
Book to read. Dear Christ, like literally I was complaining we've got a WhatsApp group chat for like the permanent rotating members. And I was complaining, I was like, who the hell chose nostalgia? It was all of us. We all said, yeah, nostalgia sound no, awful prompt, awful. But I managed to make it work. So at first I was just going to do rereads. And one of the things I was worried about, and I'm glad I was able to solve this by the book I ended up reading, most of, if not all, of the books that I read as a child that I consider nostalgic are written by white people who are either British or American. That's it. Mostly British, unusually, because like now like America saturates the market. But I feel like that wasn't so much the case like in the late 90s, early 90s, just because of the ocean. But yes, so I decided to reread. So the one I reread first, because it was the quickest, is Kittens in the Kitchen by Lucy Daniels.
Oh.
And this is, I mean, to give you a vibe, that's how big the writing is. And this is, you know, it's a chapter book. It's like one of the first books that you're going to get kids to read. I read it when I was a kid, and it is about a young girl named Mandy Moore, and she's adopted, and her adoptive parents are vets, and she lives in a small town in the north of England, and not too far from where I am now, actually. And basically, because she lives in like a rural town, she just keeps coming across animals that need help. Completely normal for that experience, but then because her parents are vets, she knows more, so she tries to help, and then her parents have to get roped in to help. And it's all about like saving animals. Like I have a box set, and so I've got we've got ponies, puppies, goats, hedgehogs, badgers, foxes, pigs, owls, and lambs. So a wide variety of standard British creatures, although I do believe that these were also released in the US, but weirdly in a different order than they were released in the UK.
Okay.
Don't know why. They don't need to be in any order. Very weird. But yeah, so these are just cute, essentially. Like, you know that everything's going to turn out nicely in the end. Like, it's just a fun, cute little read. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just do that, because I was already stressed at the start of this month with my TBR. Let me tell you, I have read next to nothing. Then another reread is the first book in the Famous 5 series of 21 books, which is 5 on a Treasure Island by Enid Blyton. I did have some people mention when I ended up saying I was reading this that they wanted to know how problematic this one was, because Enid Blyton is unfortunately not known for her unproblematic writing. Partially product of its time, but you can't fully blame that. Part of it is just because she was racist. I will say that in this book specifically, that's not an issue, because it's set in late 40s, early 50s Britain. No war involved. There's no mention of a war whatsoever. I think because this was aimed at children at the time, that's kind of when it came out as well. They were like, let's just pretend that didn't happen. They're traumatized. So no mention of a war whatsoever. And it's also in a relatively rural area, so it's all white, which for the time is not unbelievable. That would be quite common for the time, which means that she doesn't have the chance to be racist. So there's a little bit of sexism in this book, but 2 of the main characters are girls, and one of them very much like bucks all of the stereotypes, which is Georgina, who wants to be treated like a boy, and so that actually works in Blyton's favor. So yes, I can't say about the rest of the books. I am planning to reread them all, but this one is not inherently problematic. This one you can still reread and it's fine. It's a lot of fun. It's where I learnt the word bullion, which I don't know if Celine knows. Possibly, it could be from French.
Which one you said?
Bullion. Bullion.
I don't think so.
Cool. The only reason you might have is if it came from French origin. Is the only reason you might have. It's basically another way of saying like a gold bar. Is a bullion.
Never heard of that. No.
I learned it from this book. I remember reading it for the first time. I was like, what is a bullion? But this one is just nostalgic because obviously I was giving these to the kids. They're chapter books. They're for children. These are still for children, but my mum read and loved a lot of Enid Blyton when she was a child. And so this was something that me and my mum would read together, or because I got out of that phase by the time I was about 4 years old. I would read them and then go and talk about them to my mum. And we didn't have much that we could do that with, so that's why this is nostalgic to me. The plot of it is basically 3 cousins. They're all siblings, so a girl and 2 boys go off to meet their cousin, Georgina, who gets called George, and they explore her island. Very small little island. It's technically land that's owned by her family, and the parents have no use for it, so they're like, sure, kid, you have the island. They go explore it. There's a treasure wreck. There's gold. It's like completely, like, it's not a fantasy whatsoever, but it's also completely like fantastical. None of this would ever actually happen, but they go and explore this island. They find the gold, like that whole scenario. A lot of fun. But then I realized, because basically I was complaining at Hannah, specifically the Hannah that hasn't been here, that I didn't know what to pick, because these are not exactly, you know, new books that people haven't heard of.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I had a book that I gotten from an unhaul from Olivia Savannah, from Olivia's Catastrophe, and that is Stolen History by Sathnam Sangrera. And this is nostalgic and gives me nostalgic vibes because it is a non-fiction book aimed at children. And I read a million of those as a child, partly because I was running out of other books to read. But like I read, so almost everyone's heard of Horrible Histories. I loved the TV show. I didn't really read the books. Celine is pulling a confused face. I'm going to blow your mind after this live. You will be forever changed. You will be forever changed.
No idea what you're talking about, basically. But okay.
You should be excited. There was a TV show made in the UK off of the Horrible Histories books, which is very, very popular, very, very silly, and also very, very good. It's very accurate. Some of the stuff is no longer accurate, but that's just because more historical revelations have come to light since they filmed. So, like, that's the only inaccuracies that occur within the series. Absolutely fantastic. And so they did other ones as well, Horrible Science and Horrible Geography. I read those. Hi, is anyone surprised if you know me at all? I still have my Horrible Geography books. And I read a lot of things like biographies on famous people. I had something called Dead Famous, and it was like Roald Dahl, but then also going back to some kings, William Shakespeare, things like that. I read a lot of child-focused nonfiction.
Can you send me these?
No, they went to my old primary school.
No, I mean, like, can you send me the series title, whatever they are? Whoever's publishing these, can you send me those? The name
I'll
of
send you the links. Yeah, that's fine. I went to children.
Yeah.
That's why the only ones I have left are the horrible geography, is because I did originally get, I think you were there for this, because I've called Caitlin, video chatter. I originally got rid of the horrible geography books and then was like, oh no. And literally it's the old primary school that I went to that my mum teaches at. So I just got them back. No kids read them yet. So mum was like, it's fine. The kids don't seem to want to read them, so you can just have them. I was like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, so that's why this one is nostalgic as a first time read for me, is because it's one of those nonfiction, funny, amusing, easy to read, aimed for children. And you can guess by the title, Stolen History, the truth about the British Empire and how it shaped us. So this is all about basically the stuff that we're not taught in school, or at least not when me and Caitlin went through the school system, not when my other half went through the school system, not when anyone I know who's an adult now, but is still a few years younger, went through the school system. Like, might be changed now, but probably not. And it doesn't say anything about all of the atrocities that were committed, especially considering this is talking specifically about the British Empire. Obviously, Celine most likely would have learned more about the French Empire. Well, not at all, but you would have had that discussion. It's probably the same, where you didn't learn about it, but you would have had the thing of, why don't we learn about it? But for me and Caitlin, you would expect to be taught about this. We're not taught anything about it. This is a really, really, really great book. Like, I enjoyed it so much that I want to go and pick up some more of his nonfiction. He's written an adult nonfiction about the same topic. That's why he was kind of scouted to write this. He wrote Empire Land. I need to get that now because this was amazing. If I see, it's got chapters. Do the chapters have helpful titles? They do. So it breaks it down really, really simply. So what on earth was the British Empire? If it was such a big part of history, why don't we know more about it? Is all the stuff in our museums stolen? How did the British Empire shape our towns, our cities, and our countrysides? Why are British families from so many different places? But I wasn't even there, and what can I do? So it covers everything. And also, if you couldn't assume from the name, Setham is not white. He's British, but he's not white. So he comes from a place that is more qualified to speak on this than we would be. But he also then, I believe he is Indian descent. Punjabi. And so he also then relies on quotations and on references of what people have said who are, for example, black, whether they are African American or still in Africa and not just black, and how they've all been impacted. It discusses everything. It doesn't shy away from anything. The only thing that I would say it shies away from is graphic descriptions, which are not needed in a children's book. Like he states straight up, like, there was horrific abuse. It was awful. Like, specifically, for example, speaking about the slave trade, which, although is an American thing, a lot of Europe had a pretty big hand in. And so he states how awful it is. The only thing that's hidden is literally going into the graphic details of what was done to these people. And he does mention it in a slightly more sanitized way that is appropriate for kids. But so it's not like they don't have any idea. Like, they know the awful stuff went down, but he's not giving them nightmares. So I think that was done really well, because a lot of authors would instead just like run away from that completely. But he's like done really, really well in breaking down everything like adults could do to read this. I was sat there in the first chapter. That's a point as well. I think even before the first chapter, it was in the introduction. And I do this thing when I'm reading nonfiction books, is that I sit and read them in the living room. And my partner is sat playing video games. And if I'm reading a good nonfiction, I will stop mid-sentence and look up at him and tell him about it. And I was doing that from the introduction, from chapter 1. Like, there was stuff in here that it was teaching me that I didn't know. As someone who has tried to actively go and learn things. Like, as someone who has went through the education system and didn't focus on history, but has a decently high level of education. Didn't know most of these. I try and research into them myself. Didn't know most of them. Like, he's giving out really good information. It's really valuable. And then the way that he kind of sets it out, as in both the past and the present. So what happened why we need to fix it, how we need to fix it, why it impacts us, especially, he doesn't say it explicitly. He handles the topic around it really well, but also just white people. It's white people who committed this. We are now a global society with a lot more integration, but one, still fucking racist, and two, that doesn't negate what has come before. And so he does a really good job of tackling kind of what we and what kids can do about it, both on whether you are someone who is not white or white, and he tackles it really, really well. And it's done in a way that is, the British way of doing things is very much dancing around things and not saying things explicitly and not being willing to just come out there and say what the problem is. Selena's looking at us like in French, like, what's wrong with you people? 100% agree.
I don't think we were better, to be honest.
No. Not in the colonialism, in that French people will just say what they're thinking, whereas us English and British, we just dance around the topic like it's a maypole. Like, that's what I meant. No, the French and the British were equally awful. But well, maybe not. We were pretty huge and we subjugated them a lot. Love you. She's just sat there crying in Scottish.
That's the topic.
It's not colonised. Deal with it.
Yep.
That's the other topic. But yeah, like it is the British thing of dancing around the topic and of not saying what actually is the problem. And he doesn't do that. And obviously that can be a risk when you're trying to aim something at kids, because any nuance they're not going to get, not because they're dumb, but because they haven't had the life experience to be used to reading the nuances.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to miss anything that isn't like in front of them, or at least you have to assume they will, because it's aimed at all children. But you also don't want to do this stupid British dance that we do, because then they'll miss the point. Because again, they've not had the experience with the stupid British dance. And so he does really well in kind of stating everything clearly, concisely, easily understandable, and completely non-offensive to anyone. Like, this man, this Punjabi descent man, says that there were some pros, some good things about the empire. And means it. Because, well, technically there have been, on, like, if you ignore the human suffering level. But things have developed. So, like, the Industrial Revolution, where we did have human suffering in the British Isles as well. But that was a huge development, a huge positive move forward for society, not for those individuals working in the factories in Manchester, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it has brought about good things, but also at the cost of so much. And so it's like, he makes it pretty obvious, like, you need to balance those two. Like, yeah, sure, great. Now everyone plays cricket. Wonderful. Why do they play cricket? Because it was one of the only sports that were considered seemly. The gentlemen all brought it over because they learned to play it in school. Like, there's reasons behind everything. And it's like, yeah, that is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the reasons, see if we need to fix what's going on behind the scenes. It's just, yeah, and it's a really short book as well. Like, it's not as short as some of the ones that we've mentioned, but this is like a bit under 200 pages.
Okay.
And like, genuinely, like, I know that we're not the biggest non-fiction readers here anyway, let alone I don't think anyone who's part of Total Bollix, other than me, has read a child's non-fiction book in years. But genuinely really recommend this. Like, it's really fun as well. It was, from an adult perspective, it was so weird. So they used to do this as well in the non-fictions that I would read as a kid, where they would like reference famous people or like known people, and kind of use them and like try and, you know, use that as a way of like linking the kid in to the topic and making them pay a bit more attention because, oh, I know that person. The person they used for that in here was Marcus Rashford. Now, for anyone who doesn't know who Marcus Rashford is, he is a footballer who plays for England and for Man United. I'm a Man United supporter, so I know of him reasonably well. Don't judge me. And he has done a lot of good things. Like, he is the reason that the British government actually feeds children in schools. Is because he he shamed the British government and was like, if you're not going to do it, then I will just have to dip into my quite hefty, because I'm a footballer, savings, and I'll do it. I'm going to start with like my region in Manchester and I'm going to spread it across the UK. And the government was like, oh no, we can't have a footballer doing it.
When was that?
It was during the pandemic.
Seriously?
Yes.
That took too long.
So he is the reason that British kids get fed lunch at school without having to pay.
I don't know
That's
how to
cool.
feel about that.
Yeah. So, you know, like, great person to put in here. Like, genuinely, he's doing a lot for the community. Like, that's not the only thing he's done. That's just the biggest scale thing that he did.
Yeah.
Like, he does a lot. Great person to put in here. He's younger than me.
Oh dear.
I think he's 1 year younger than me, I think, if I remember right. And that was the weird thing. Of like, I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna like, clearly, you know, I can tell, like, oh, they're leading up to mentioning someone famous, and I'm expecting someone like that. I'm like, oh, they're quite, and then it's someone younger than me. I'm like, bro, that's too far. You could have picked anyone, and you picked the person younger than me. Why? So be prepared for that if you pick this book up. But other than damaging my precious ego, other than that, great book. But I've went on about that for long enough now. So any questions?
No, you described them pretty well, and I don't know any of them either.
I mean, this was a new publish. This only came out recently. That's why Olivia had it. Olivia sent a lot of brand new books, and so she can't read them all.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely recommend this one. These are fun if you want to read some old classic like kids books from back in the day. But
well, I tried with. Well, it's a hit or miss for me because I hated The Secret Garden. I'm sorry, I hated The Secret Garden.
I mean, to be fair, did you read it as an adult?
Yeah, and
it's really problematic, so I don't blame you.
Yeah, and I had the very pretty Minalima edition, so at least there was, you know, prettiness around. I had like stuff to play with like a kid, so at least I was happy for that. That's why it was the 2 stars and not less, because pretty edition, that's it.
Yeah.
But I really did enjoy Out of Green Gables, and I don't remember who mentioned that earlier, but The Wind in the Willow.
Yeah.
So it's a hit or miss for me, I feel like children. Yeah, like classic children books.
Yeah, especially because the classic children's books are hit or miss. I mean, The Secret Garden is both racist and ableist.
Yeah.
So is Heidi. Heidi is less racist because, again, it's set back in the day and there weren't any people of color. There were, they just weren't in the story. So there wasn't really any racism there because they didn't include any characters of color. Yeah. But ableism, massive ableism in that one as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you want more details, then I will give them to you. But like the thing is, I read them as a kid, so to me, I took on their.
I do have Little Princess. I don't think I heard a lot about this one. I don't know if it's that problematic. I do have it, so I think I'll give it a go.
But yeah, so they are a bit of a mix. But the first Famous Five book, at least, is not problematic.
Okay.
So it could be worse. Could be a lot worse. That's like fine. Like literally the only thing that's even close to being problematic about the Famous Five one is just the sexism, but it's not actually actively sexist. It's just obviously portraying what was actually happening in society at the time and actually combating that with a character who wants to be perceived as a boy.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So George is the reason that I considered when I moved from Germany to England by going by a boy's name. I thought it'd be fun.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And I was like, you know, that my mum wouldn't let me wear shorts to school because we had like uniform shorts. Same material as like school trousers, and if it was very, very warm, you could wear them. And my mum wouldn't let me, even though girls were allowed. Mum wouldn't let me because I was a girl. And so I was like, if I go by a boy's name, then I can wear the shorts.
Yeah.
So but let's go have a look at these. Okay, yes, Eleanor, that's where you got that from. Eleanor read Wind in the Willows for the prompt this month. That would work very, very well for nostalgia.
I read it not that long ago. Like, a couple of months ago. No, a few months ago, a couple of months ago. Like I think in May, probably. Not that long ago. It was actually really good.
I've not read it yet.
It's cute. It's a really cute story.
I think I did. Not quite. I think I talked for 20 minutes, but close. I mean, in which one? Okay, she said also have some of the 5 books. So it's either this one or this one. There's no murder in this.
It has to be the famous 5, right? Because like Pirate Island.
Like there's no murder, but it like there's some damage. It's a theme throughout that they physically damage a large number of adults who are bad. They're like thieves, criminals, tricksters, and they will like, you know, slapstick comedy, like smack them upside the head and stuff. So, not murder, but maybe that's where I get my love of murder in books from. They were fun. Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Me too.
I did too. I really did too.
So fun.
Specifically about nature and animals and like the oceans. Definitely.
I think I read them all. I think my parents got me like the general encyclopedia because it was bigger and they were hoping it would take me longer to get through.
Yeah, same with my
spits.
When you're through with this one, we'll talk more. For the next 6 months, have fun. At least you learn about it.
Yeah, like Britain and France. I don't know about France. I only know about Britain because I've went and learned about it. Well, we didn't learn about any of the European countries' involvement in slave trade. We barely learned about the slave trade in my school system.
I don't think we learn enough about it. It's mentioned. Like there's no way it cannot be mentioned. But I think definitely do not learn enough about what really matters.
It was mentioned in passing, just in that they would mention, and the reason I said it that way, they would mention in passing the slave trade of Americans, but that wasn't covered until, like the American slave trade and everything, that wasn't uncovered until GCSEs, which for anyone who doesn't know, you can choose whether or not to take history at that point. And I didn't. So I never studied like the actual slave trade to do with North America ever in school, because that was once you could choose. And then I think when they covered that, just from what friends were saying, obviously I don't know firsthand, but they would like mention in passing that Britain had been a part of that, because obviously America speaks English. They were influenced quite a bit by Britain. And so it's unavoidable. It's like, well, if they were doing it, of course we were doing it. But it's never actually touched on. Like, I mean, when a lot of the Black Lives Matter fights were going down in the UK rather than in the US, like there was a thing in Bristol, I don't know if you remember, Caitlin, where there was a statue in Bristol that got completely vandalized and knocked into the water, because it's this man that did a lot for the community, put a lot of money into the community, got schooling for all of the children that previously were just completely uneducated, and he got all of that money from trading human lives. So we don't talk about it. We've got a lot of slave statues all across this country. Winston Churchill. Hate that man. Did read a child nonfiction book at the end of last year, but it was Happy Plantopedia.
The best.
I want it. Happy Plantopedia. I need it.
Anything with trees and plants and nature, I'm like, hell yes, please give it to me. I know. I'm adding it to my wish list.
And then yes, this person was confused about the banner. That's fair. Yeah. I just, it was a joke that we did, I think the first month.
Probably.
Yeah, I think it was the first month because I was the one hosting, and that's why I did it. And then now that's just what I do for the banner. It's just so that it close to continuously, as close as I can make it, will just keep saying someone's name who's talking. Because otherwise, if you make it rotate, it goes around and you don't see the name half the time.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so it did say everyone else's names when they were speaking. It just happened that it was my books we were talking about.
You're a very, very tiny name.
Britain just needs to be embarrassed to do things. Right. The problem is we needed to be embarrassed. Now we need to be not embarrassed to fix things.
It's never happened.
At least no. Look, if we can't fix like England, Scotland, and England Wales relations, do you think we're going to fix them with the rest of the world?
That's been centuries, like literal centuries.
Oh, I mean, like everyone talks about, like the Republic of Ireland and stuff as if that was centuries ago. I'm sorry, do we or do we not still have Northern Ireland?
I'm pretty sure that there's still things going on with that right now.
I wanted to go to uni in Northern Ireland and I wasn't allowed because my dad, who previously served in the British Armed Forces, wasn't allowed.
Really?
I wanted to go there because it was, I looked at it and it was a decent uni and it was cheaper. Most unis, we've got like a capped rate and most of them just put that highest amount. And this is like 9,000 odd per year. And this one was 6,000 odd per year. And so I was like, ooh, it looks like a good uni and it's cheaper. And my dad was like, well, you can do it if you want, but I can't help you move all your stuff. I was like, why not? He's like, I'm not allowed in. What? What did you do? He won't tell me.
What did you do? Exactly. Did you kill someone over there? What happened?
He's never killed anyone as far as he's told me, but he seems quite proud about that. But I will find out in 75 years when it releases from the National Secrets Archive.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
I need to put a reminder on my phone. Thanks for explaining, Eleanor. Afraid to reread the 5 books. Yeah, that was me as well, and this was kind of like toe in the water. You can read the first one. I promise you can read the first one. It's absolutely fine. Like I said with the sexism, like it's just what you remember. It's fine. It's exactly just what you remember. So you can 100% read the first one. When it starts to involve other people by, like book 5 or 6, don't know. Give me a year. I'll get back to you. Yes. Yeah. So Heidi is all about a young girl that is like grown up in the mountains, and she ends up being, through different circumstances, made to go live in the city, and she's friends with a bedbound girl. And the whole thing is that the mountains are able to help this girl who's bedbound no longer be bedbound, rather than just like it's so annoying because it so easily could have went in a good direction. Like they are so obviously the mountain is not accessible to the wheelchair. That is still the case today. It's a mountain. However, however, like one of the male characters, which makes sense for the time, is very, very strong and just carries the girl in her wheelchair up the mountain with no issue. Like that's the start, and that he's written to be very strong, and this girl is very frail because she does nothing but lie in bed. Like it 100% works. That's like the start of like you could have made this great.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the start of like you could have made this like, oh yeah, and it makes her emotionally feel better. 100%, because she's been stuck in a room in the city with like one window for most of her life. Like going to the countryside will likely make her feel emotionally better. You could have done that.
Yeah.
You could have had her being happier rather than being as sad as she was. But no. Yeet her out of a wheelchair.
Does he throw her off the mountain?
No, the one you're thinking about just does that to the wheelchair.
Right. Okay.
She's jumping out of it at one point.
What's wrong with people?
That's not even a British story, so you can't even blame the English. Sorry, Caitlin.
Oh no.
Animated film for Wind in the Willows.
When I finished the book, I researched a little bit. I think there's 2 different ones. Or like, is there one movie? No, I think there was 2 different ones. One from Disney from back in the days, and then another one, if I remember correctly. And anyway, I need to watch those. That was
tell us if it's any good. And then the author of Plantopedia is Celine can say that.
Adrienne Barmont.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
If you want to read it, you could just read it in French. I know you like reading in English because you're weird.
I do. I don't know why, but I do. I'm even more curious now. I need to go check the book. Let me see.
Do you mean Heidi or do you mean Plantopedia?
I want to bet on Heidi and not Plantopedia.
I assume it's Heidi. Imagine being traumatized by Plantopedia. But yeah, I assume that's Heidi because Heidi was, there's a whole discussion that we could have around Heidi. It's bad. It's bad. Some classics just, the rest of it is so wholesome. I need to actually no, why am I saying I need to do it? Caitlin, you need to rewrite Heidi.
I've never read Heidi. I don't know how to do it.
Then
You didn't ask for it? There you go.
If anyone was unclear, Caitlin has self-published a book called Samuel Noack, which is about a man who grows up during World War One, ends up having to serve in World War One, and that entire situation. Read it, loved it, very good book. Just giving you some promo.
I want to the same way.
So, also, she had been reading Frankenstein again for the 700th time while she was writing it, and so that does kind of leach into the writing style, and I love it. Like, it's so it gives Frankenstein vibes, which is why I think you should just read Heidi and then rewrite Heidi, because then we'll Can you do that for me, please? Thanks. Right. If you don't look to publish this as like a rewriting, if you just do it for me, you just need to rewrite like certain bits. Like keep the rest of the story as it is, and just rewrite the ableist bits.
Yeah. The bits that could have that didn't have to be there.
Precisely. Because it's traumatizing. She confirmed it's that one.
Yeah.
There's a live action version. Oh dear God.
Probably, like all the classics have one, right?
That makes sense, but like I don't know if I want to see the ableism visually.
Maybe it's not that bad in the movie, though I doubt it, but maybe it's not.
I have a really bad feeling that in the movie the girl is yeeted off the mountain out of her wheelchair. I've not seen it, but I've just got
what? I need to watch the scene.
Just the one scene.
Yeah, I just want the scene. I need to watch
what happens to the wheelchair in the Heidi movie.
Yeah, like absolutely on YouTube. I will check it for sure.
Oh God. Well, on that delightful note, I think we are done for today. So thank you very much to the both of you for joining me today, and obviously to Hannah, who had to depart. And we send our love and wishes to other Hannah and Lizzie, who are not with us today. Celine, promote thyself.
I'm not posting anything on YouTube, so let's not talk about YouTube. But I do have my 2 book clubs. The Book Wanderers, where we have seasonal readathons all year round, and lots of bingos as well, monthly bingos, which is fun. And I just created my new book club, Stuff Selling Reads, and so we were actually reading this one for July, and for next month we're buddy reading Yellowface. So it has one. Yeah, I'm so happy. I'm so excited. It's, I don't know if you, the yellow thing here. So yeah, I'm so excited. So that's it. Literally, that's it. You can join, you cannot join, like whatever you want. But we're talking a lot of books all the time, and we're buying books all the time. So, yeah.
Caitlin?
I don't know what to promote because I haven't been posting. So, I mean, I do have a channel, but
go follow her and go watch her dissertation videos, because they are really aesthetic and like really gorgeous. And also, she's now burnt out to fuck. And speaking of the word fuck, the prompt for next month is unbelievable.
And I have no idea what to read.
I can barely pick the books that we are recommending to folks.
I am hoping that Yellowface would do it.
See, this is the thing. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, because in my head I was like, oh yeah, it needs to be something where I read it, and I'm like, what? But one, I don't have many situations of that on my shelves, so for like recommending books, struggle. But then also, how am I meant to guess that from my
I'll
TBR?
have a look at your TBR, see if I've read anything and thought.
You've done this more than once now, and I deeply appreciate you for it. She just goes through and she's like, try this one. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, there must be some. There's books where like I know that there'll be twists, but like, I don't know. I think in my head I'm like, oh, but I know there'll be a twist, so it's not unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm starting to think I might be autistic. I'm taking the instructions too literally.
I mean, I can't say that I did that to make you feel any better because I
You're
am.
literally autistic.
Oh, Abby, it's okay.
I think I'm taking the instructions too literally. I am, aren't I?
You absolutely are.
No.
I mean, you can always just use Vox and then specifically the tweet from that author. Because that was unfucking believable.
I unhold the book because I don't need that tough bullshit in my life. If anyone doesn't know, I didn't tag her at all because it was a very negative review because she's a tough. I didn't read it. I was like, this is going because it's written by a tough and it's all about feminism. And then she found it on her own and tweeted it out to all of her followers.
Somehow found it on her own. She must have been stalking you.
She must have been looking for reviews of her book.
That's a bad way to go.
That also might mean that she was specifically looking for like negative reviews of her books.
Yeah, like, what is wrong with her? Why would you do that to yourself anyway, but also fuck off, you tough?
Yeah.
Poetry, that's fair. I like poetry, but sometimes it can brain break.
I do not like poetry.
How dare you? Caitlin doesn't like it either, do you?
I have
You've
a
stayed
weird
suspiciously
relationship.
quiet.
It's because I don't know if I like it. The poets that I read are like not morally correct people. Like Percy Shelley, like the romantics, they're just not nice
Try
people.
some Carol Ann Duffy. I read her for my A-levels.
I'm traumatized from that because I had to read it for school. It's like I can't read it anymore.
I read Carol Ann Duffy for my A-level English literature class, of which I did not attend any of the classes because the teachers were dicks. And my form tutor also agreed with me that they were dicks and helped cover for me, and I still got a C in that class.
Impressive.
Thank you.
Wow.
And the only good thing was that I read the Carol Ann Duffy poetry and loved it. Like, I annotated the hell out of that and had a good time the entire time doing it. She's very, very feminist. Like, they are all feminist poems, so highly, highly recommend.
I feel like somebody related her to, what's the name? Angela Carter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Why? Did you do
We
something?
were reading a book by Angela Carter in my A-levels while we were doing the poems.
Oh.
I still have the book on my shelves because I need to reread it because I hated that book, but also I hated the teacher.
But what one was it?
It was Wise Children.
I don't know if I've heard of that one.
It has potential. Like, it's about these two twins that used to be in showbiz, and they're absolutely like mad, like mad fun mad. And it's about them like recounting their life, I think. But like the teacher was awful, so I feel like I need to reread it because I
don't let the teacher ruin it for you.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to try some poetry, yeah, it was in my hires as well. Hires are the same as A-levels. It's 16 to 18. At the time when we did it, non-mandatory education. It's now mandatory because the laws have changed.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
You
I
have
don't
to
think it's mandatory for us either.
You have to stay in education until you're 18.
No. That's cruel.
I know. We didn't, if it wasn't obvious, but we all chose to because we hate ourselves. Yeah, that time period, hires A-levels, is when I studied Carol Ann Duffy, but I enjoyed her. So. Oh well. But yes, so on that note, obviously we have promoted Celine. We have promoted Caitlin in that you should go and follow her for when she does then restart. You may also get cute baby photos. That may be a positive or a negative. So take that as you will. You're already on my channel, so like hit the follow, hit the subscribe. You're here anyway. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and thank you both of you for coming and joining. It's been lovely to have you both.
It's been lovely to be here.
Good.
Functioning, you know.
Okay, thank you so much, folks. Bye.